Episode 4, Stephen Gloucester podcast, and I'm taping this right around 7 hours post my appearance on the Kirk Minihane show. And to summarize that before we really get into details, I do agree with Kirk and Mutt that my overall grade was a B today. It definitely wasn't a flop. I didn't bomb, but I also don't think I delivered that A-plus performance, that epic performance that a lot of people were expecting from me. But I think I did enough and said enough that hopefully Kirk will consider me for a second appearance on the show. And if anything, maybe Coleman and Andrew can use me for some vlogs or any projects they may have going forward. I would definitely love that opportunity. And if all the doors are closed, then I think I learned a lot from today's show that will help me with my own podcast going forward and maybe any other potential projects I have down the line. And before we get into the nuts and bolts of the show itself and my thoughts on it, I want to dispel this Italian act and Italian bit that a lot of people on Twitter and, Mutt had mentioned today. I'm 100% Sicilian. My father was born in Terracini, Sicily. My mother's family came from Spadafora, Sicily. I'm 100% a Sicilian. So when I hear this was an act and there was a bit, there really wasn't anything to that. Am I a little eccentric? Does the Italian attitude or that, Sopranos-esque type behavior come out when I'm nervous or excited or upset? Absolutely it does. But it's not an act. And, Mutt had mentioned he didn't hear that before the show. Yeah, because it was a calm atmosphere. Mutt's a wonderful guy. I enjoyed meeting him, and, he learned a little bit about me. I enjoyed talking to him, and post-show I enjoyed talking to him as well. So the act or that Italian stuff doesn't really come out when you're in a nice conversation with somebody. And it also wasn't there when I talked to Coleman and Andrew pre-show because it was a quaint, quiet setting. Definitely, I was a little overboard, I think, at times. I was a little too eccentric. But I was a little flustered in the beginning of the show with the microphone. I'm a newbie. I don't know how these things work. And, my life is still like 1982 in my mind. So when, getting in there and being nervous, once I figured out the microphone stuff, I really felt like the Italian act or bit or whatever you guys want to call it went away because I felt like I really settled into the program. I mean, certainly I don't want to be another Rico Bosco. I don't want to be a guy that should be sitting in the Bada Bing. I definitely don't want that to come across, and I'm sure you guys haven't seen that in any of my prior episodes, and you won't see that much going forward. But I definitely want to dispel that act or bit that people thought I was playing on the show today. That's definitely not the case. And as I mentioned on the show today, I would love to do a live show in my hometown of Terracini, Sicily. I would love Kirk and the guys to film there, stay at my house or, look around, be in that city. It would just be a dream come true to have them there. So that definitely is an opportunity in 2024 or beyond. If those guys want to do it, I'll make it happen. That's a Stephen Gloucester guarantee. Like, that will happen if they want to do it. But, getting into the show itself, I felt like my talking points were there. And I think Kirk really understands my talking points. He accepts it. And Kirk's right. My execution of the way I deliver things is absolutely poor. And it's going to get better with time. And I hope his show gets better with time. I know, Kirk's in a tough spot right now. And when I look at Kirk, I almost see Mickey in Rocky III. And if you remember in that movie, Rocky was at the statue unveiling. Clubber Lang came onto the spot, and he really got Rocky aggravated. He got under his skin. He made a pass at Adrian, and he got Rocky so incensed because Clubber wanted that title shot that Rocky gave it to him. And if you remember, Mickey didn't want to go through with the fight. Mickey kept on trying to tell Rocky he was done. He was finished. He didn't want to go through with it. And it wasn't until Rocky convinced Mickey to do it that the fight went on. But you could tell Mickey didn't want to go through with that fight. And he had his face buried in his hand, and he kept on saying, "It's your head, kid, it's your head." And what happened? Clubber demolished him. Poor Mickey, unfortunately, we saw the end of Mickey's character, in that movie. But you could tell, he didn't want to go through with that fight. But he had to, because he didn't want to disappoint Rocky. So even though he knew Rocky was going to lose that fight, he still went through with it. And that's where I feel like Kirk is right now with Gus. Or what I like to call him, Gussie bullshit. I think Kirk knows what he has here. This is a losing proposition for him. This is not going to go far. But I don't know if Kirk even knows what he's going to do with this kid. I mean, he's a nice guy. He's cordial. He's funny. He definitely made me laugh today. But the nice guy act can only accumulate so many points. It can only give you so many free passes. Eventually, there has to be a make or break moment for Gus. He's either going to find something that he can do that will push him forward with Kirk. But right now, and Mudd had mentioned this on the show today, that everything he's doing right now isn't landing. And he's just not hitting even a single with any of his ideas, let alone a home run. And Kirk's in a spot. I mean, what's he going to do? I mean, he said today on the show, I'm not going to get rid of a guy during the holidays. But how much into 2024 is he going to continue with him? And, maybe Gus turns it around. Maybe he isn't Gussie bullshit, and he is going to deliver, and he's going to come up with great ideas. And, the kid was working today behind the scenes. He was trying to get a guest on the show. You got to give him his day's due on that. He really was trying. But there was a point of today's show where Gus had said, "Why don't you do it?" Gus, I can do it. And I have done that in my life. In my past profession as a journalist, I did get people to talk to the newspaper. But it wasn't just asking one person or calling one contact that made me get an interview. I often went through 4, 5, 6 contacts. I would call offices. I would talk to secretaries. I would find out sometimes who the janitor was to the building and see if that janitor could go up to the office and talk to somebody up there for me. It isn't just, hey, I called Tiffany Amber Thiesen's phone, or who I think was Tiffany Amber Thiesen, and I left a message. Hey, I called this one number I found for the Fonz, and move on. You gotta put the work in. You really need to make booking guests a priority. And if you take 1 or 2 hours out of your day to really focus on it, set up an Excel spreadsheet, write down the contacts that you have, write down, how many attempts you made, who you emailed, and really do the grunt work on getting a guest. A guest isn't, hey, I'm just going to DM somebody on Twitter and he said no, so I'm just going to move on. You really got to put the work in, just like with your job. If you want to be a better producer, you got to deliver. And he had said to me today, what ideas do you have? I got plenty of them, Gus. I got plenty ways that I could potentially make the show better. But it's not my job. I don't get paid by Kirk to bring ideas to the show. That's your job. You have to be proactive. And I think right now Gus is a little reactive to everything that's going on. He's seeing that Justin might be doing something behind the scenes, or, he might see that Coleman's doing something and he has to react to it. He hears something that Kirk may say on the show and he wants to react to it. And I don't think Kirk wants a reactive type person. I think he's had that with Cullinane. He had that with Steve. I think what he's looking for is the proactive person. A guy like Justin who proactively went to Delaware to that Subway. Justin who went to a supermarket today to go see if he could find the potatoes that Mutt was going to use to do his Thanksgiving mashed potatoes. That's a guy who's being proactive. And that's a guy who's going to land at Barstool Chicago, and he's going to do a lot of good things for Big Cat and the Chicago office. That's being proactive. That's what a producer does. That's what an employee does. An employee says, how am I going to make my job better? How am I going to impress my boss? And right now, I just don't think Kirk is impressed. And I think the Gussie bullshit thing is getting old quick. You know, he went through the Davey bullshit stuff, but Cullinane had that way to kind of finagle his way around and do enough to get going, to keep the job going. And to be honest, Dave was the only producer that Kirk had, so he had to give him a longer leash. He had to keep him going because he needs somebody to produce a show. Well, right now, Kirk has that producer in Coleman. So I think it's up to Gus to find a way to break away from all this negativity. And, you know, he's got to find a way to be proactive. And, you know, maybe having a guy like me on the show today, or, you know, getting the feedback by Mutt and listening to Kirk, and, you know, having Kirk ask him to leave the show earlier this week, maybe that's the incentive that he needs to really give himself a good opportunity to do this job, because you know he's not going to walk away from it. Like, Rocky wasn't going to walk away from that fight with Clubber. He was going to do it regardless. But, you know, he's got to do something to turn the tide, because right now that guy is drowning, and I don't think that there's anybody out there throwing a life preserver to save him. So we'll see what happens in 2024. I don't think he's going to last. I really don't. But hey, maybe 1 year from now, we're talking about it, and I'd be the first guy to say I was wrong. You know, he wasn't Gussie bullshit. He delivered, and, you know, hey, we'll go from there. But anyway, you know, to summarize, you know, the show itself, you know, the Kirk Minihane show is, you know, the belle of the ball. It's the greatest experience, and, you know, the guy's a first class all the way. I mean, from the pregame, you know, walking into the studio, you know, the Q&A with Andrew, and, you know, the convo with Coleman, and, you know, talking to Justin and Mutt, and then you go through the whole show, and you just feel like, wow, I'm a part of something special today. This is a great show, and what Kirk Minihane does is unbelievable. I mean, he is just a showman. He is so good at his job, and he is the best podcaster in America. And, you know, he's a great guy. And, you know, he's a great guy post-show, too. And that's something that a lot of people don't see, that I was able to have that, you know, quick 2 minutes with him. And, you know, he's really a nice guy. You know, he gets that thing, you know, the Barstool people like to make it out to be that Kirk's this type of guy, or, you know, you hear the Twitter feedback, you know, Kirk's miserable, Kirk's an asshole, he's mean, whatever. That's not the case. Kirk's a really good guy, and I appreciate the time that he gave me on that show today, and I appreciate being a part of it, and I really, really hope that there is a spot for me in the KMS universe going forward. I really would like that second opportunity. And if anything, I continue to welcome Kurt's feedback on how to make my show better. And I think I learned a lot today, and it can only lead to great things going forward. So anyway, thank you very much for listening to me, and I'd like to wish everybody a happy and healthy Thanksgiving. Be with the ones you love. Really enjoy their company. And, you know, we'll talk to you after Thanksgiving, definitely in episode 5. And I believe I'm going to go on Mike and the Minifans this Friday. I was asked to go on from Joe the Axe. And, yeah, I think I'll be there. So we'll talk to you Friday night on Mike and the Minifans, and definitely in episode 5 next week. Take care.